Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into something a little bit different with this video. The topic of weapon sunsetting isn't something I've dove into on this channel, mainly because I'm in wait and see mode. If Bungie ends up dumping a huge batch of weapons on us that adequately replace the ones that we're losing, and have unique and interesting perks, I'm probably gonna be okay with it. I like new stuff, I want to use new stuff. But if the situation in the current season continues where we're regrinding the same exact weapons for the same exact perks, that's BS and that's a problem. And while every gun in the game will live on in quick play and comp crucible matches, and in non-power relevant PvE activities, I got to thinking, which weapons would I really be sad to see go that I'd like to continue to use in power-enabled game modes? And what weapons are truly irreplaceable and have no real chance at returning? And whether we like it or not, weapon sunsetting is right around the corner, only 2 short months away. So I've compiled a list of 6 weapons that I'm gonna miss when sunsetting occurs. And if you're thinking 6, that's kind of a weird number. I had a nice round list of 5 and I remembered one that I just couldn't leave off. And if at any point you find yourself enjoying this video, leaving it a like really helps it reach more people, and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to see more Destiny 2 content. But here they are, in descending order, saving my absolute favorite for last. Let's get into it. So, as we head toward the great weapon sunset of Destiny 2, there are currently 4 aggressive frame pulse rifles in the game, 3 of which are going to be sunset. One of the 3 is the Black Armory pulse rifle, the Blast Furnace. And the sole aggressive frame pulse rifle that will not be sunset is the Sacred Providence from the Garden of Salvation raid. The problem here is only a small amount of Destiny players have actually completed a raid. Though they are probably the best content in the game, only a small portion of the player pool are actually interacting with them. So if you're like me and don't have Sacred Providence and fancy using these 4-round burst pulse rifles, we'll be heading into Beyond Light without one that can be upgraded. But of the 3 that are getting sunset, Blast Furnace in particular I will miss, because I really love this gun. The extremely high range stat on this thing made it a really fun gun for invading in Gambit, and it was awesome for cross-mapping players in the Crucible. And even though it was a kinetic primary weapon, it still could output a good bit of damage in PvE. Plus, you could put a glow on this weapon, but whatever happened to that? And WoW will almost certainly get another aggressive frame pulse rifle somewhere down the line. It has some big shoes to fill, because for me, Blast Furnace is always going to be the measuring stick. Both the Redrix Broadsword and its predecessor, the Redrix Claymore, are both Crucible pinnacle weapons. The Claymore on release was only earnable in the comp playlist, and some crazy low percentage of Guardians actually got this weapon. The number of 6% comes to mind. But the very next season, the Redrix Broadsword was introduced to be a more accessible version of this weapon. And while Bungie did accomplish the mission in making the weapon more accessible, man was this quest a long and arduous grind. I couldn't fault anybody for being upset that this weapon is being sunset, just because of the sheer amount of work it took to obtain it. And also, these high-impact pulse rifles are finally in the meta. And what makes Redrix really special is that Outlaw Desperado combo. You score a precision kill, reload, and the weapon's fire rate jumps exponentially. And with high-impact pulse rifles at base downing Guardians in 0.67 seconds, once Desperado is procced, it just downs Guardians so stinking fast. And I also really like this weapon in PvE for general ad clearing. It's especially entertaining in Gambit for stuffing invaders. Since there's usually a trash ad around you can pop in the head, reload, and then melt that SOB invader right through his overshield. I would have really liked to see Redrix come forward just because it's powerful, but it's not overpowered. And I'd really like to see the Desperado perk on other weapons. I just get the feeling that Bungie's kind of shying away from damage increasing perks now. But you never know. Bungie has surprised me before. Wendigo is such a cool grenade launcher. Picking up Orbs of Light fuels the damage output of this weapon, and at the time of its release, the only function of Orbs of Light were to increase your super regeneration. I suppose we did have that small handful of mods that would go on your class armor to refresh your health or whatnot, but Wendigo added even more value when picking up these Orbs of Light. And now, we're working within the Charged with Light system, where picking up these Orbs of Light factors into your gameplay in various different ways. And it just seems to synergize so well with Wendigo, because not only are you getting these added benefits, you're stuffing supercharged grenades into your launcher. I mean, you throw on a high energy fire mod and get a few stacks of Charged with Light, and you have a weapon that will wipe out any enemy in front of you without remorse. Wendigo has always been a strong weapon, but I have really been enjoying using it here in Season 11, which unfortunately is going to be the last stop for this grenade launcher. Here again is a weapon with a unique perk that will most likely not be replaced in the future, and it's extremely sad to see this one being left behind. That's right, you're getting a 2-for-1 here, because I'm going to miss both Randy's throwing knife and Outlast for the same exact reason. I hadn't touched Trials since the second week of its reinception. Me and a couple buddies just had a really bad time in there. And to be honest, 3v3 elimination is not my favorite game mode. I enjoy the 6v6 game modes exponentially more in Destiny 2. But the other night, J-Boy, November Hotel, and myself hopped into Trials and played 2 matches. Not even a full card, just 2 matches. And I had an absolute blast. It left me wanting to play more. So I got to thinking, what weapons would I really like to be using in Trials? Randy's throwing knife and Outlast were the very first weapons that came to my mind. But the problem is, a 600 RPM auto rifle, given their current potency, is just the better option. And given the fact that I am not a terribly high skill player, I just wouldn't feel comfortable in Trials running a sleeper loadout. So what's my point here? Undoubtedly, auto rifles are going to get toned down in Beyond Light. At least, I hope so. Which would leave the door open for weapons like Randy's or Outlast to actually feel like a viable option. But come November, neither one of these weapons will be upgradable past power level 1060. So Randy's, which I always thought was a fun and unique gun to use, and Outlast, which was my go-to gun in the Crucible for a long time, will be stripped of their relevancy in the power-enabled Trials of Osiris game mode. It kinda makes me a little bit sad thinking that neither of these weapons ever got their chance to shine in this PvP endgame activity. Other rapid-fire pulse rifles and scout rifles will come around in the future, but whether or not they can capture the same feel as Randy's or Outlast remains to be seen. Oh, the loaded question. Otherwise known as the gun I use for absolutely everything will be Sunset, and this is gonna hurt me real bad. This weapon has not left my inventory since I acquired it back in Season of the Forge. See, I'm a fusion rifle user at my core, and this weapon just checked all the boxes. High impact fusion rifles were very strong and very consistent in PvP for quite a while. Not as much following their recent adjustments, but they're still serviceable. But the Reservoir Burst perk gives Loaded Question additional damage, and through that, additional range, plus the ability to score some multi-kills and deal with roaming supers. And for PvE, this thing is a crowd control beast. Entire mobs of ads can be wiped out in just a single burst. But also, Loaded Question disposes of major targets pretty effortlessly. And it provides plenty of boss damage from a special weapon that can be used outside of the stomp radius. So in quick play, comp, gambit, nightfalls, dungeons, and even in some raids, Loaded Question was either strapped to my back or in my hands, and this gun never let me down. I would venture to say that in the future, we're never going to see another legendary fusion rifle with the sheer damage output and utility of Loaded Question. And with this weapon being left behind, it is going to leave a huge hole in my energy slot. And as I'm sure you've noticed, I left weapons like Mindbenders, Recluse, Revoker, or Mountaintop off of this list. Not because they're bad weapons or I don't like them, but they've had their time. I mean, I've played with them, I've used them, in some cases I've abused them, but I feel like I'm done with them. For me, they've just ran their course, but the weapons on this list I would love to be able to continue to use. Now it's your turn though. Head on down to the comments and leave me your top 5 list of weapons that you're going to be sad to see sunset. And if you did enjoy this video, please remember to leave it a like and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to catch more of my Destiny 2 content in the future. If you'd be interested in catching me live, you can head over to Twitch, look for Ironworker814, drop me a follow, and you will get notified whenever I hop on. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can look for Ironworker814 on Twitter, but the absolute best way to do so is just to comment down below. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this video. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.